Chapter 8 covers quite a bit about memory and cognition. The difference between the two is your memory is your ability to store and retrieve information over time, where cognition is the process of acquiring and using knowledge. Okay, so keep those two in mind. What we need to understand is that our brains are not like computers. A lot of times we use the way computers process information as a way to help us understand our brains. However, there's one major difference. The computer holds files or snapshots of information in time. Your brain doesn't work that way. When it's recalling a memory, it's actually trying to repeat the rapid firing of the neurotransmitters in the exact way that occurred when the memory was formed. So it's actually reprocessing the memory, which is why our memories can change over time. There are two specific types of memory. Your explicit memory, which is your firsthand or your knowledge or experiences that can be consciously remembered. Okay? So explicit memory is what you can consciously recall. It's when you can tell me a story or answer the test questions. You can consciously recall this information. There's episodic, which is your first-hand experiences, and then there's semantic, which is the facts and concepts about the world. This is what tests look at. There are two types of tests, recall and recognition. I give you the recognition tests, multiple choice. The right answer is there, you just have to find it. Recall tests tend to be more difficult, more thorough, and generally more preferred at the college level. These are the essays or the fill in the blanks. They want to see how much you can consciously conjure up and repeat on the paper. Okay? So, explicit memories, your knowledge and experiences, it includes the episodic and the semantic memories. Implicit memory are those memories that influence your behavior even though you may not fully be aware of them. Procedural memory is one type, and it's just kind of this unexplained knowledge about how to do something. You ever met those people who can touch a car and just know how to fix it? I'm not one of them. But that's the procedural memory. They're able to use their existing knowledge and memory patterns to figure out new answers to problems that they've never seen before. It's procedural memory. And then priming is changes in our behavior due to frequent or recent experiences. This is where the conditioning comes in. It happens often enough and you learn the new behavior, or you stop doing the old behavior. But maybe you have a sudden new experience like a car accident and you no longer drive that road. You come up with a new route to work. That's also a form of priming, or your implicit memory. It's affecting your behavior whether or not you're conscious of the fact that you never drive down that road anymore. You will do whatever it takes to go around the road where you had that accident. Okay? So, two types of memory, explicit and implicit. 3 stages of memory. Your sensory memory is your brief storage memory. It's basically just long enough for your brain to determine what's important and what's not important. If it's important, it goes through and makes it into your short-term memory. Now here's the key about your short-term memory. It's only good for a few seconds up to the max of a minute, and only for about 7 items at a time, which is why you can remember a phone number long enough to write it down. It's 7 digits. There are ways to increase your short-term memory capability, and we call it chunking. And that's just organizing the information into smaller groups so that you can remember more smaller groups. Say you need to memorize a string of 12 letters. Well, if you put them into 4 groups of 3 letters, now you're only using 4 items in that short-term memory capacity, and you can remember more. Okay? Now, how does it get from short-term to long-term? Maintenance rehearsal. You repeat it over and over and over and over and over. That's how you get it to long-term memory. You know, like when you repeat a phone number 15 times between the time you hear it and the time you dial it, that's your maintenance rehearsal. That's what can also move it into long-term memory, which is your storage of memories for days, months, and years. So how do we get it there? How do we keep it there? The process of placing these experiences into our memory is called encoding. And another thing that you want to keep in mind is the spacing effect. Now, this is what I talk about all the time when I'm talking about your study skills and your time management skills. Because what studies have shown is that you can spend 2 hours of time studying for a test. And you are going to do better on that test. You're going to better learn the information if you do that 2 hours in 30-minute blocks of time over 2 to 4 days, rather than if you sit down and have a 2-hour cram session. Your brain can only process and retain so much information at a time. So if you block your information, block your time of studying, you'll actually have more memory, you'll have a better retention, and do better on the exams. That's why it's best to pre-plan your studying and block 30 minutes or so a day to just review the material that you know is coming up on a test eventually. Okay? The term for recalling your memories is retrieval. That one's pretty simple. Now, remember from chapter 3, we had these specialized areas of the brain that did different things. So keep these 3 in mind. The hippocampus is your explicit memories. Remember, explicit memories are what you can consciously recall. It's the stories from childhood that you can tell. The cerebellum is responsible for those implicit memories, the ones that affect our behavior even though we may not consciously be aware of them. And probably to no surprise, the amygdala is responsible for the emotional facets of our memories. Now, how trustworthy is your memory? Can you rely on it? We have what we call cognitive biases, and these are errors in our memory or judgment caused by the inappropriate use of cognitive processes. Just remember that cognitive biases are why our memory is not 100% reliable. Here are a few of them to keep in mind. The confirmation bias. We tend to verify and confirm our existing memories rather than challenge them. So when you're telling a story and you're like, I think it was 4 years ago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 4 years ago. You've just confirmed your own memory, whether it was right or wrong. Functional fixedness. Sometimes we have a hard time realizing that something can be used for something other than what it was purposed. For example, if you don't have a hammer and you need to drive a nail into the wall, what can you use? A shoe? If you can think of that, then you're not bound by functional fixedness. That flexibility or creativity in mind, in our use of items. Okay? Misinformation effect. When new information influences our existing memories. In the study we see about picking cotton, we find that the detective confirmed the victim's story or her selection of the perpetrator by saying that was the same guy you picked out of the lineup. That was the same guy you picked out of the photos. That's new additional information that has now given her our next issue, which is overconfidence, in her ability to recall. So the detective unknowingly and unintentionally caused her memories to be incorrect by providing new information that somehow altered the existing memory. And then the last one is overconfidence. It's when we're just too confident in our ability to recall things and remember accurately what happened.